What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. So if you guys have been following along on the progress on the E36, you guys know that I have pretty much gotten it to the point where I'm almost ready to drive it. So the only thing that I have left at the moment to finish up to actually drive this thing is the brake systems. So I have already done a lot. I built a custom chassis harness for this thing. I got it all wired up. I have already bent most of the hard lines for the brake plumbing. I did get in a hydro e-brake, along with that an adjustable proportioning valve and all that stuff. So I do have a lot of stuff done on the car, and right now it's just waiting for a lot of little minor things and the brake lines. So I know in the last video I said that next time I'm gonna be doing the brake lines and finishing those up and hopefully driving them, but I do need to finish a lot of little things here and there and tie up a bunch of loose ends, especially like with the brake lines. So before I even get started on putting brake fluid in there and finish connecting those up, I do need to make sure that all of the hard lines that I bent are all mounted and secured, because right now they're just kind of like in place. Like, I did finish all the brake lines and I bent them and they're all mounted and stuff, but at the moment they're not really secured. They're just kind of put in place and there's nothing really tying it down to the chassis or anything. So I do need to take care of that. Along with that, the same thing is also happening with the custom chassis harness that I built. It's just kind of connected and in place. It isn't really mounted, it isn't secured. So those are some of the things that I need to take care of. So I'm just gonna go through and start getting all that stuff done, and I'll see if I can make a video out of this. Alright, and then the next thing that I need to figure out is how I'm going to mount and secure all of this wire. So you can kind of see that right now it is still just kind of hanging in place. So if you guys can see this, I already have some zip ties kind of like laid out in places where I actually want to mount it. So, and then if you see, I have a zip tie already put in place, kind of hanging off. But I did just go through and put these ahead of time just so I can kind of mark where I actually want to put the mounting tabs, because I am going to be making my own little like mounting tabs. So I'm really hoping I have enough of these left here. So that's the part number for them. I ordered them off of like Pegasus, I think, just some like racing shop online. So this is what I'm going to be using to secure my wiring harness. So basically this is something that a lot of racing teams use. They use it in like DTM, and just a lot of race cars actually use this because it just makes a quick little nice mounting tab for like cable ties and stuff. So that's that. And they do have the little hole that you can basically screw it down to something, but what I'm going to be doing is actually just using some JB weld and just epoxying it down. I don't have to go and drill holes all over the car where I want to mount my wiring. So I just think this is like a really easy way. I did get this idea from some race team that I follow on Instagram, and they're in the process of building like a DTM car, and they actually use these little tabs, and that's what gave me the idea. So this isn't necessarily like a really ghetto way of doing this. This is something that does get used on like real race cars. So yeah, I think it should definitely be good enough for this little E36 project here. Alright, so before I go any further, I just wanted to check in with this step really quick, because this one is really important if you guys are going to be doing this. If you're going to be doing it with JB Weld or like epoxy at least. So I went through and basically anywhere that I'm planning on like securing the wiring harness, like everywhere I put one of these little zip ties ready to get mounted, I just went through and kind of sanded out a little spot down to the metal. So I just kind of etched it out a little bit just to kind of give the epoxy something to grip onto, because as long as you sand it and as long as you put that epoxy on a piece that's kind of like sanded, that thing will stay on there for a really long time. So yeah, I just went through and basically kind of sanded out little spots on the entire chassis. So I'm just gonna go through and get this JB Weld like quick epoxy. See how I get to that and go from there. Alright, so I just went through and got these all epoxied on, so they aren't fully set or cured yet. So I'm just gonna kind of leave these overnight just so they can fully harden and everything. And then from there, once they're all set, then I could go through and actually like zip tie and secure them on those little tabs all throughout the chassis. I think I talked about this before when I was installing the harness, but in here with this switch panel, the wires going to the switch panel, I don't have like a connector or anything. So when it comes time to take out the harness and unplug it from the switch panel, they're just spade connectors, so it's a really hard time. So I am waiting for connectors to come in for that. And I also want to see what I can do over here as far as getting some connectors installed. And once everything is fully mounted in place, then I could go through and trim all the excess wire that I have over there. Since I was making this all from scratch, I did leave a lot of excess wire on this side, just in case, you know. So once I have it fully mounted and everything all in place, all over here, all down here, then I know what the spacing is, and then from there I could trim all of the excess wire and kind of clean it up a bit. Alright, and another thing that I do want to take care of is mounting and securing the brake lines. So my whole idea with like putting like mounting tabs on this, if you see this, you can see that it moves a lot. And I mean, that is exaggerated just because all of these lines are loose. Like I could like loosen them by hand and stuff. So that is going to be exaggerated because once everything does get tightened down, it does kind of tighten down the line and does kind of take away some movement, but that's still a lot of movement. And that's a long distance from here to all the way back there where the line's mounted. That's a big distance for this line to just kind of be chilling, you know. So I just went through and placed these little P-clamps right there and right here, and I placed another one back there kind of by the T-fitting just to kind of support that line going from side to side. So yeah, so once you kind of mount it, you can kind of see that even just having one P-clip right here kind of reduces the movement a lot. So I'm just gonna go through, do that with the rest of them. You can kind of see I have a couple little P-clamps put in place. So now that I kind of have the P-clamps like put in place where I want them to actually be, I just need to go through, drill out a hole, and I want to run riv nuts on those just so it can make it really easy to just be able to run a bolt in, tighten it, boom, call it a day. Okay, so it's the next day now, and this JB weld has definitely had plenty of time to actually cure and set and stuff. So right now I'm just gonna test them out, and I'm like pulling pretty hard and that thing is not coming off. So I definitely know JB weld gets a lot of crap. It definitely should not be used in a lot of applications that like a lot of people use it for, but in this, I mean, it's literally just gonna be holding a wire in place. So it just makes it like a really quick and easy way to just kind of like mount it where you want without having to like drill holes and have to run a bolt for each one of those. So now anytime I want to remove it and stuff, all you need to do is just clip the little zip tie, and anytime I want to mount it, I just put a new zip tie. So that should be a lot easier moving forward. Alright, and this is how it's looking so far. So got it all tied up. I know it doesn't look any different, but now it's all secured on there. So I think I might add in a couple more, but I mean, so far it is pretty tight on there, nice and secured. Over here on this side, since it is by the header, I think it might be fine for now, but I might add some like kind of like heat wrap over that, but I think it should be fine for now because again, that like Tefzel wiring is pretty heat resistant, and along with the Raychem DR25, that makes it pretty heat resistant, so I think it should be good. But yep, all this side nice and tied up, nice and secured, and over there as well. But on the inside is where you can kind of tell or see the biggest difference. So if we kind of check it out as if we're a passenger, you can kind of see it is tucked out of the way a little bit more. So there is a couple little mounting spots up there, so that's kind of out of the way. Right now the wires for the switch panel are kind of hanging, just kind of hangy jangly right there. So I do need to kind of like mount those up out of the way. But one thing, I did mention this before, but another thing that I want to do is actually mount some sort of like connector back here, just so if I ever have to like take the switch panel off, it'll be nice and easy and I could just disconnect it from there. Or if I ever have to take the harness out for any reason, I can just disconnect it without having to deal with all those spade connectors behind this guy right here. And also, just excuse this little ground cable that you see right here. It is really long. I'm gonna trim that up, and I am just gonna ground that out on the plate right there, just because the plate is ground. So yeah, those are two things I still need to take care of, but overall it is looking really good. And then over here it's tied down. Back here all this is nice and tidy. And yeah, if you can see, going back to the trunk, I even have all of that tied up as well. And then over here, if you can see back there, it's kind of dark, but the harness over there is kind of out of the way, because before it would be hanging down kind of like by the clutch pedal, but now it's kind of mounted up and out of the way. So yeah, everything is looking good for the harness. I'm super stoked. And along with all of that, I did also mount up a couple of these things on the electrical panel, and I did kind of trim up some of the wires and tidy it up a little bit over here. So kind of check that out, let me know how it looks. I actually did leave a lot of excess on a lot of these wires, just because in the future, if I ever have to change stuff around, I don't really want to have to like take apart the entire harness just to like add in some more wires or to give myself extra length. So I just kind of left the ends with some extra length, just in case I need to re-splice, re-strip, or anything like that. I just have more wire to work with. And now if you're like sitting on the interior, you don't see any of the wiring harness hanging down underneath the dash. Oh yeah, I also fixed that fuel line that goes between the two. I did route it underneath, and then I put these covers back on. So yeah, it is starting to come together. So I'm just gonna keep the progress rolling. Let's get to it. Up next, well, this kind of sucks. All right, okay. And up next, I need to plug in everything down here. So I think I did mention this in another video, but like when I was plugging in all of the engine harness and everything up there, the harness does kind of come down here. So all these plugs are for like the O2 sensor and stuff like that. If you can see, we have this O2 sensor bung. They previously zip tied it over here, so I just need to plug that in. Another thing I don't think I mentioned is The engine harness that I got off of eBay for this car, it was off of an automatic transmission, so yeah, I think there might be an extra plug in this. So I think this one right here, I think that's an extra plug that might have been for the automatic transmission. I'm just gonna look around. I don't think there's a connection for that. If there is not, I'm just gonna zip tie it out of the way. All right guys, so I'm just plugging everything in right now. I think that's where this plug goes. I'm not exactly sure, but this seems about right because we have this like vacuum hose that's like cut off, and it goes to this thing right here, which I think this is like the evap system. So this is stuff for like emissions. I'm pretty sure, I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I got that connected. This is for the second O2 sensor. You can see it kind of goes back that way to this bung. Then we have this bung right here that wraps up, and I was about to start connecting these plugs here, but right now I have it like wrapped over the transmission, like over the bell housing, but I'm pretty sure it actually wraps this way because up there, if you can see it, right up there somewhere is the connection for the reverse switch. I'm pretty sure it's the reverse switch. That's the only thing that I could think would be plugged into the transmission right there. So with that, I'm pretty sure that's what this plug is for, reverse switch. But really quick, I'm just gonna go back up and then route these 3 cables through this side here. But other than that, I'm just gonna go through really quick and just do a bolt check. So I mean, I see that there's a bolt missing there, so I'm just gonna go through and just make sure that all the rest of the bolts are tightened, and I'm just gonna put my hands on as many bolts as I can. That way I can just check to see if there are any more missing bolts, and I can just make sure that everything is tightened, so it'll just give me a little bit more peace of mind. All right, and now if you look down here, everything looks pretty tidy. Again, this isn't the cleanest car, still has a bunch of oil and stuff, typical BMW things. I mean, all the wires are out of the way, all of the wires that I need are connected, and it is really tidy. And if you look kind of like level like that, there's nothing that's really hanging down low. Everything is nice and out of the way, so boom, super stoked on that. And in here, I don't think I showed this yet, but we have the harness that's going through, and then right here, this is the part of the harness that wasn't completed, but I just got that done with some Raychem DR25, and then it's going down into the abyss. And if we look down here, here's the diff, and you can see the connection goes right here, so right behind the diff. I did kind of try to add some like service loop right here, but yeah, you can just see it just goes straight up. I did a heat shrink it with the Raychem double walled adhesive right here in the end, and then like you saw on the inside, I did use the Raychem DR25 going down here. So yeah, really basic right there. All right guys, so everything is starting to tidy up in the car, and everything is starting to find its place and find a home now. So the wiring harness is all secured, mounted. I have everything going to the speed sensor, and then all of this is nice and tidied up out of the way. Harness is going over there, and then back behind the dash, it's nice and out of the way. You have the harness going up to the cluster. There's some wires going to the pedal for the brake switch and all of that. And there's the back side of that bulkhead connector. So it is nice and out of the way, nice and tidy. And then from there, all of the brake lines are nice and secured, you know, so you can see none of these are really moving, nice and tight. So all of the brake lines are good, all of the wiring harness is all good. I just went underneath the car, made sure that all of the harness is connected down here, made sure that it's tucked up out of the way. I know this video is kind of all over the place, but I'm super stoked in getting all of these little last minute details done, checked off of the list, and yeah, we're getting really close to being able to actually drive this thing around. But yeah, from here, I'm just gonna do a couple more things on the checklist to kind of make this a little bit more of a complete car. And then from there, I could get the next video going. I am super excited because from here, I could actually go through and start finishing connecting up the brake lines. And once I have the brake lines all connected and I bleed everything, I could actually take this thing for a drive. All right, guys, so things are looking super good. Making some really good progress, getting a lot of those last minute little things on the checklist all done, getting everything all tidied up. All right, and there we go, guys. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. I'm stoked on how everything is staying. So the chassis harness over here is nice and tucked. This little electrical panel is looking pretty tidy over here. And then the rest of the chassis harness back this way is looking good. And all of the brake lines are mounted, secured. So yeah, none of that stuff is going anywhere. And from there, that just gives me a lot of peace of mind as far as when I'm gonna be driving it, nothing's gonna be going anywhere. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm just that much closer to being able to drive this thing. There are a couple more things that I need to do. So mainly those brake lines. I know I've been waiting for some stuff to come in, but yeah, I'm gonna be getting to that. So if you guys did learn a little thing or two, or just kind of get some ideas with mounting stuff, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. If you guys are looking forward to seeing some more progress on the E36 and me ripping this thing, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and keep an eye out for the next videos. See you guys in the next one. Later.